Welcome to the For the Love of the Game podcast with your hosts, Jefferson Belfort and Brian Hernandez. Brian, how are you doing?
Oh man, I am doing fantastic. I'm very happy that we actually waited to record this on a Monday night versus the weekend because we actually got some new news this morning. A lot of fun stuff to cover today. But yeah, I'm doing great. How about you, Jeff?
Doing pretty good. Changing up the setup a little bit,
Uh-huh.
loving it.
Uh-huh.
Constantly thinking of new ways to make this look good, look clean for our listeners. Um, Definitely love input. If you guys want to see different things, want to see us try different things too, we are flexible. So this is one way I'm saying flexible.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime, any suggestions, any feedback, please. We love it. We want, like Jeff is saying, we want to make this the best show possible for you guys. That's why we're doing it. It's a lot of fun for us. So yeah, any ideas, and we'll definitely try to implement it. But yeah, Jeff, what's the topics we got for today?
All right. So sorry. The topics that we have for today are starting off with the new breaking news dropped by Woj and Shams like a missile in the middle of the night in World War II. The Katie to Celtics news drop, adding a new layer to the Katie drama. And then an ongoing drama as well is the Donovan Mitchell trade rumors. And then lastly, stop me. You don't even need to stop me. You heard this way too many times now. The Lakers try to trade, drum roll, Westbrook. Westbrook is in the trade rumor again. The man cannot stop being put into the trade machine in the Lakers front office. That is all we have for today.
Yeah.
Do we have a weekly roundup?
Uh, I have one extra thing, but that's it's not necessarily a weekly round. I don't know if we can consider it a weekly roundup, but yeah, it's a little tidbit, a weekly tidbit.
Weekly tidbit. All right, I'll take that. All right. Well, are you ready, Brian?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right, perfect. So, like I said, like when the Axis, I think it was the Axis, right? That was the Germans, right? Like the Axis storming
Yeah,
in through
yeah.
Britain in the middle of the night in 19 something. Woj and Shams dropped the bomb of the night, telling us of a package that the Nets ultimately said no to of Jaylen Brown, um, a pick. I'm
And
trying to
Derek
remember what
White,
was the last
and
pick.
Derek
And
White.
Derek White. And the Nets said no to that for exchange of Kevin Durant.
Mhm.
Brian, first, what do you think about that first proposal? I'm sure they're going to go back on the drawing board, but what do you think about that first proposal?
I think it's a pretty solid proposal. I so one, if you just think about like what the Nets can generally get, they're really it feels like it's not as much as that as you would think, or at least people are willing to give up, and it's really not as much as you would think. Of like all these younger teams with new stars like Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley. Seems like those guys do not want, or those teams do not want to give up those guys. And then you see the team that just went to the NBA Finals trying to give up their best performer in that entire finals. Even though we've talked about it on here of, yeah, even though Jaylen Brown performed the best, we still think that Jason Tatum is probably the better player to go forward. But Jaylen, that doesn't mean Jaylen Brown's any slouch or anything like that. So it's kind of cool and surprising to see them still throwing his name around in all these trades. The other stuff around him is pretty weak in my opinion. Of like, Derek White, whatever the picks were, I don't think it was officially said, but like Celtics picks are not going to be very much, especially with Kevin Durant on the team. So unless it's like a 2028 pick, when you have Jason Tatum, being gonna like 31 or whatever, like in good shape, there's not really much hope there. So that's kind of like my first thoughts. I'm very intrigued by your thoughts, Jeff, as our resident Nets expert. What do you think about this?
You forgot Miami Heat as
Oh
well.
yeah, Miami Heat.
It's all contingent. It's all contingent
Yeah.
to the decision that the Nets make, right? So first, first like impact, or I guess first thought. I mean, is the best way to put it that I had when I heard this trade is like honestly, probably the best you're gonna get. No, it's probably the best you're gonna get.
Probably.
When you have the likes of Mithcell Bridges being the center of your trade, and it's no shade to him. Think about how many times on the pod we talked greatly about him.
Yeah.
He's a great player, but do you move Earth and Sea, for Mithcell Bridges? Like that's what Kevin Durant is. You don't get a second chance on a guy like that. They only make a couple of those every century, right? Or every decade, right? So you don't want to move him for something that seems like, and sad to say it like this, but pedestrian. Because like when it all comes down to it, and I feel like this is propelling thought throughout the league, is picks are nice, right? They are really contingent on thought, right? Like it's not. We don't know what that pick's going to turn out to be.
It's a lot,
especially when we're thinking when we're thinking 5 years down the road. Like it's hard to say like there's going to be the best prospect in that draft at that time that will have or be able to replicate the same type of skill as Kevin Durant, right? So I'm still of the mindset that you don't move a guy like that, right? But if Kevin Durant makes it so hard for him not to be here, or is going to make it hard for you to even want him to be here, then you have to acquiesce to some degree. And by far, with all of the picks, with all of the trade partners that we've seen, this is probably the best of what you're getting out of the situation. Now, I am not remiss to think about Jaylen Brown's side of it. He literally tweeted SMH earlier today. And I know he was a little upset already hearing his name being thrown into trade proposals earlier in the year and saying like, like I'm a talented player. I'm a key part of this team and people want to ship me as quick as possible. It's kind of sad on his part, but it's like they say all the time now, it's a part of the business, that something like this could happen. You can't be too personal about it. You can't make it too personal. But hey, I think that this is honestly a place where he gets a fresh start, a fresh chance of being a contender. And that's what I'm not missing out on the thought process to is let's say, and it's going to come up in other topics as well. But let's say, as we've been seeing for the last couple of years now, the Lakers do the wrong thing, right? And Kyrie going to the Lakers is almost not as certain or is not as possible to happen, right? So you have a team now of Jaylen, you have a team of Ben Simmons heading it, right? We don't know what Ben Simmons looks like. It's been over a year, so we can't really even understand if he's going to be who we think he is, right? But you're bringing in potentially, and the reason why that trade was held up apparently is the Nets want to get back Marcus Smart. There's been for years now. Nets have thought of Marcus Smart as a guy that they want on their team. There's a couple of years back, you can look back when the Nets were complete dookie, and Sean Marks was met up with like Marcus Smart during a summer league game, and like there was a feeling that this has always been someone he's interested in, and I think that that goes back to him being a part of the Spurs organization. Marcus Smart being in the Texas area, so he's probably hearing rumblings of him ever since he was in high school, about how good this guy is, and it's just been he's defensive player of the year for a reason, even though I wouldn't have gave it to him, but he's defensive player of the year for a reason, right? So if you're able to pull two of those guys as centerpieces of your trade, then let's say, and this is a trade that I'm seeing everywhere, or not everywhere, but an interesting one that is being thrown around is a trade around the Miami Heat for Kyrie Irving and getting someone like a Max Strus in that trade, a Duncan Robinson in that trade, getting a Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, I believe, is on an expiring contract.
Mhm.
That gives the Nets more flexibility for next year. You're looking at a team that still could compete, not contend, but can compete in the East, and they're not as far off as you would think. And then now on the flip side of it, this just propels Celtics into contention beyond just going to the finals to winning the finals. It kind of puts the heat on them as well, but it is a good situation for them to have. Team that is based around all of um, its historical backing of winning championships. They want to have a situation where they're once again thought of as, hey, we're contenders. We're always going to be in that conversation. We'll be the ones that'll be putting up the banner at some point. So it seems like that is the closest we'll get to a win-win in a situation than any other. Miami doesn't have the assets. The Suns doesn't have the assets. Toronto has the assets. They don't want to give the assets. Boston's the only one that has the assets and actually is willing to give up a piece, which in this NBA, in this version of the NBA now, it's kind of crazy to ask for an asset back in a trade just because a star wants to leave.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's really funny to see like the little things that's stopping the trades, or not even little things, but like you said, all right, so Kevin Durant, superstar, one of the best players in the NBA. And you say 1A, 1B, 2, whatever. No one has them lower than 3, I would imagine. Um, People is like, all right, you don't want to give up Scotty Barnes, you want to give Evan Mobley. Like, I'm actually kind of on those camps, mainly just because I'm very high on these younger guys. But it is like when you're getting that Kevin Durant, you do have to give something up. And it is crazy that, like, I mean, Jaylen Brown is actually something that's like of substance. I would imagine what it kind of feels like when most teams would give up is like, think about the Celtics doing this trade, but without Jaylen Brown. And you put in like, so you have Marcus Smart in there, you have Derek White in there, you throw like some of these other just bench guys that you like that are really good on your team that you want to be there, but they don't want to give up because they're like, no, I want to pair up Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kevin Durant. That's what we want to go. That's essentially what Phoenix was doing with like, we want Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. That's what we want, so everything else can go. Meanwhile, like you're saying, for Kevin Durant, you don't want Mikal Bridges being the centerpiece of that. So I do really like it. I think it is the closest thing that you would see to a win-win. So I am curious though. So like we know the Nets declined this without Marcus Smart, and maybe let's say the picks were 2 or 3 picks in there with Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and 2 or 3 picks. It would even that if you saw that trade was official this morning, would you be upset?
Wouldn't necessarily be upset. I would just feel like, it's time to fleece him back, man. Like it's time, man. Like it's time to get it back. Like
Yeah,
I think you have to exhaust every opportunity, every chance you can as much or maximize what you're getting back, right?
for sure.
So I'm not stopping until I hear potentially, and now I'm looking at what you could potentially give or what's on the table looking at their roster. I'm either trying to get Jaylen, I'm trying to swap out Derek White for Marcus Smart. And honestly, you choose which one you love more. Time Lord or do you love Grant Williams more? That one of them has to come because you don't have the draft capital to bring back to the Nets. And you do need the salaries to match. Granted, it does look like Marcus and Jaylen together might do it, but you don't have the draft capital, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no way the Nets say, like, let's say it's a 2 years from now draft pick. That's not going to work. I need someone like a Grant Williams coming off of a rookie contract that's going to expire next year. That's another guy that I would look at
I think
into.
he just got an
Um,
extension, correct? I believe he got an extension.
okay, well, there we go.
Yeah.
But it does seem like they tried to make the salaries match with a Derek White and Jaylen to match Kevin Durant's salary.
Mhm.
But even if, man, I'm willing to even go as far as giving up a guy like who is arguably an easy piece, um, Seth Curry to get one of their guys back because Seth Curry is gonna be coming off going into an expiring contract,
Mhm.
and he's making around 8 mil a year. Like if you could pull back some salary for that, you give me Jaylen Brown, you give me Marcus Smart, you give me. I said, if you wanna say peace to Time Lord, or you want to say peace to Grant Williams, a piece to one of them because I'm asking for one of them, and then one pick. I could live with one pick in that situation, but it's not gonna be in this decade.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be in this decade. Like, it's definitely gonna be in the next. Like it's gonna be like 2031, 2032. I'm not looking at anything in 20 anything that got a two as the third digit. I don't need to see that. Like I really
the
don't need to see
the
that.
latest teams can trade is 7 years out. So 2029 is the latest he can trade.
Oh man. Oh, I'm gonna make it 2029, and then it has to be like protected, so that it rolls
Oh,
into the next year instead of
it's
unprotected. Yeah, like that's what I'm
a top 28 protected pick.
exactly. It gotta roll something like that, man, because I just don't see when
Yeah.
this team becomes bad. But I'll add another take to this is I was watching or yeah, I was scrolling around, and Nick Wright had a very interesting take on this. And trust me, Nick Wright's not usually one of the guys that I like his takes, but he had a pretty good insight into this. Where and this is a bombshell, Brian. This is definitely get you out of your seat type of talk. He had
Oh.
to say something that would make people go like, "What?" Like, he's like, forget about that. Scratch everything about all of those other pieces. But I think this guy is already on that list, so this might make it even harder.
Mhm.
But he's like, just do a trade straight up with Jason Tatum. You don't know if in 3 years Jason Tatum's gonna go like, I don't want to be here anymore, even with Kevin Durant, or an aging Kevin Durant that he
Yeah.
doesn't want to be here and he wants to take his talent to LA like everyone knows him for being so unshy about how much he loves that team, right? So that is a possibility, but I think for the future of the Nets, it makes a lot more sense to just go after Jaylen Brown and a package around those role players on their team because, like I said, that looks like a team that could still compete. You still keep Joe Harris. You still are able to, if you don't include Seth Curry, you get to keep Seth Curry. You have some time to develop Claxton further with less pressure of trying to win right now or win it all right now. Also, you get to potentially decide what you're going to do with Kyrie Irving, and that's the biggest contingency after this trade is the aftermath is what do you do with Kyrie? Does Kyrie buy in? Because I know he has great rapport with Jaylen Brown, but think about that now. Like, what does that team look like? A Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons. Um, that's a pretty intriguing core to have, but you got to have Kyrie buy into it.
I mean, so yeah, even just thinking about how that team would even look like, I just like the defense. I'm just such a big defense guy, and that's why I've always been so high on Ben Simmons, which hasn't always paid me the best dividends and all that. But man, that team would be a lot of fun. I am curious. Did you get a chance to check out the Windhorse news that or the not even news, but like what he commented on this trade rumor from Shams?
No,
So
surprise me.
yeah. So what Windhorse was saying is more of like that he actually doesn't think that these are active talks. That these are more just like he's like I understand this came out today, but this isn't like a fresh thing. Like this has been going on for a while. So this is where it's kind of like into the thoughts of this is a lot of trying to get the price up, trying to do some other stuff like, hey, this is what the Celtics are offering. Look, they're actually giving us a good player here. Let's try to move some people, get some fire under the butts. I'm not sure.
So you telling me Scotty Barnes, huh? That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing Scotty Barnes. That's what I'm hearing in that. But no, I like this package way more than any other package that you
Yeah.
would get for Kevin Durant. Honestly, will any of them equate to the level of player as Kevin Durant? Obviously, time will tell. But I could answer that really quickly. No, is what it would be.
I think this whole situation is very interesting, especially with like so when you have the Kevin Durant saga of the Nets having a super high asking price, people not necessarily wanting to meet it as right now, and it really looks like that this trade that there really isn't going to be a trade. Kevin Durant's going to be a net at the beginning of the season. But the interesting thing is like it feels like the Nets organization actually wants this to act or Kevin Durant to stay as a net. So maybe like something like this coming out, like I say, maybe they're trying to drive the price up. Maybe this is there's reports that they're not in talks with Kevin Durant and all this other stuff. And I think Woj said the other day of that Kevin Durant has not walked back on his trade offers, like or his trade request. Like he still wants to get traded. Maybe this is them trying to communicate, like, "Hey, we're still doing talks out here, so still doing this." Because as we all know, whenever these reports come out, it's all of like, it's all to get people talking. It's all to get. It's there's always an agenda behind it. So maybe there's something like that. But yeah, it doesn't really feel like to me like the Nets actually want to trade Kevin Durant.
But you know what makes it so compelling that it came out from both individuals
Yes,
is
yes.
that the conversation is happening on both sides, right? Like players are possibly, or agents are hearing the rumblings, and now owners are making it clear that there's rumblings as well. So, like they say, there's smoke. If when there's smoke, a fire's not too far, or whatever the
Yeah,
saying
when
is.
the smoke, there's
You
fire.
get the gist. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then on the flip side though, of like I was saying, I don't really know if the Nets necessarily want to trade Kevin Durant, but like that's where it's like, hey, if we get this offer, we'll take it. Yeah, if we get an offer that's gonna like blow our socks off, like all right, we'll take the offer. On the flip side, though, to me, even though I understand some people say otherwise, with the Donovan Mitchell stuff, I feel like right now Danny Ainge is like, our asking price is all the way up here. It is everything we want for Donovan Mitchell. But they're like, please, someone just come up and take this trade because we actually do want to get rid of him for next season. Am I crazy of thinking that? Are you feeling this as well?
Yes, then you're right. It's just transitioning, right? It's fluid transition right into it. It's yeah, no, like you ever seen that video where like it's like this guy, he's like somebody's saying something to him, he's like, more, more. That's Danny Ainge. That's literally Danny Ainge. And any trade proposal is that he's asking for more, and he's going to keep on asking for more, right? And there's no rush. Like put it for both teams that we're discussing, that has the asset. There's no rush to having to send these guys out. So time is not necessarily of the essence for them. They're not losing anything if they just hold on, right? So they're going to squeeze you because time is of the essence for you because we're getting closer and closer to the training camp. And if you want to bring in Kevin Durant, you don't want to. I mean, if you want to bring in Donovan Mitchell, I'm sorry, bring in Donovan Mitchell. You want him to actually be able to integrate with his new teammates, have a training camp under his belt, feel good about the system, feel good about the playbook, and be locked and loaded at the beginning of the season, right? That's where they have the advantage, and they're trying to take as much of the advantage. But I agree, they know they want to move forward without him because him being on the team equates to them winning games, which they don't care for because they're probably also in the victor draft sweepstakes for next year. So I'm not even gonna try his last name. I hope you understand.
Yeah. I think everyone's kind of in the same boat with right now with Victor next year. Like no one wants to say his last name. Like everyone that does it, it's like it's always the awkward pause. Like I'm gonna do right now. Like when Banyama, I think it's like, and I was like, pretty good, right? Like it's always this really awkward situation. So everyone just calls him Victor.
Yeah, no, that I had one of those moments yesterday, and it was pivot out of basketball for a second. Was watching the Mets game, and it was the first time I heard and found out that Mark Canna is not his name, is Cana or something like that. It's not pronounced that way. He's Portuguese, and it's not Canna. So like it's the same thing. Same thing for Victor.
Yeah.
But in the Utah situation, I do agree. They are waiting to see the highest bidder. And honestly, I wanted to break this here, Shams, out here adding some fuel to the fire, saying, hold up, Knicks, you ain't the only one in the party. You ain't the only one in the party now. The Wizards, the Raptors, the Hornets, the Kings, the Heat, the Hawks. I know he doesn't want to go to the Kings, but hear that all of these teams feel they have a chance. First, I'm going to ask you, what do you think is the biggest surprise of this list of teams? Obviously, I didn't say the Knicks. We're already talking about the Knicks. But what is your biggest surprise out of all these teams?
I think it'd have to be the Atlanta Hawks. You have Trae Young. You just traded a bunch of assets for DeJounte Murray, and now you're going to add a short guard So you're gonna have a 3 guard lineup because you want DeJounte Murray is gonna have to play the 3 in that situation. That's the worst. Already people are making fun of the Knicks and Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell being 6'1" and all this other stuff. Like that would be even worse than sadly the Knicks doing that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was definitely a shocker to see them on the list, and goes back to talking about Danny Ainge. He got that fleece breath, you know. He's always trying to fleece a team, man. Like he sees that they've already went down the road of moving some picks this off season. He was like, might as well try to come and get the rest of them, right? Like so it feels like on on the Hawks side, it would definitely be interesting to see it, right?
Yeah.
But on the Jazz side of it, I don't even think they care about what they're getting back in that situation. They'll have a trade exception that I think holds up till another year. After you get that exception, imagine that whatever the trade exception is going to be, it could be like 30 mil. It could then become one of the teams like the Thunder of acquiring a guy that they know is gonna be bought out and then just stockpile these picks continuously. So this seems like a place that would be perfect to dump him, but I don't think this is the perfect place for him to win. Obviously, the Heat are on this list. The Heat always want to have been linked with him this whole summer and this last year. Um, Kings, I don't even want to talk about the Kings. Um, Hornets, Hornets are in a bad spot. Like they didn't think they were going to be thinking about the future in this way, and now they have to with Miles Bridges' situation. And then the Raptors and the Wizards, um, both definitely interesting. Besides the Knicks, I think the Raptors got the best package to send, but I still think the Knicks get it done. They just wanted this out there to tell the Knicks that there's people on your tail. You better get it done.
Yeah, I think this is definitely like exactly what we're talking about. Of this is just to drive up the asking price. Like if the last one like I was talking about with Kevin Durant, maybe it's oh hey, we're still active, KD. Like don't be upset with us. Like no, this one's definitely let's add some fuel to the fire. I wonder if Danny Ainge, because Danny Ainge has a history of leaking things to the media to drive pressure onto front offices. I wonder if he's trying to do something with like James Dolan. Of like if James Dolan, because everyone knows the owner of the Knicks, James Dolan, wants a superstar in New York. And if he feels like, hey, any of these other teams can come in, I have to step up and do something here to make this deal happen. Give them whatever they want. Let's do this like he did with the Carmelo Anthony trade. I feel like that's what kind of this situation is. Will it work? I don't know. Hopefully James Dolan has learned his lesson. But I am also just very intrigued of you always hear about Danny Ainge's just negotiation tactic isn't really a negotiation. He just tells you, hey, I want X price. If you don't give me X price, we're not doing this. And he sets the bar super high, and this is why we heard of all these trades where, oh, Danny Ainge was so close to trading for this player. He was right there about to do it. Yeah, because he's not afraid to walk away from trades. That's where I kind of feel like this situation is. I will say, though, I'm curious. Last time we talked about it, we hear all the rumors of the deal is done, all this other stuff. A bunch of even Jazz reporters were like, I know people that are in the inside. I don't know how true this is. I hear people say, I also got the text that this is done. And then at the same time, I know some other credible people are like, no, nothing's changed. Do you Do you think there's some substance here? You think the talks are actually like pretty deep in versus what we're hearing from? I think a lot of like Woj and Shams are even saying that this trade isn't as far and things have stalled for a while.
I think goes back to the whole tactics that we were mentioning. It could, and just taking what you just mentioned about how Danny Ainge has like a set price in his mind of what he's willing to give and what he's willing to take on, right? Um, it seems like he's just going to. It's a way to, with the media, infuriate fan bases and like try to force them to force a way into the front office, right?
Mhm.
And we've seen in the past how that's become effective, right? We don't have to look too far back as well. And we bring up like a trade like the Harden one, where it was pushed out in the off season, and ultimately it extended into the season. But it became so polarizing on Twitter. It seemed like every day of that summer, off season because it wasn't the summer,
Yeah.
everyone was on Twitter talking about it, and nothing happened that off season.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? It became, and I equated this trade. I'll always equate this trade to the reason why they won the championship, and I'll also equate it to the reason why the price went up on a guy like James Harden in that offseason. The Drew Holiday trade
Mhm.
set the market to be exponentially higher than what it should have been. Because of that, it was a good trade because they did it like a thief in the night when no one was thinking that this was going to be the
Mhm.
propelling conversation. It became the thing that won ultimately the Bucks their championship because effectively it made a handicapped teams like the Nets that were in on like having conversations originally with a guy like for a Drew Holiday, which ultimately in my mind still I know um, hindsight is 2020, but when it was initially that Drew Holiday was the interest that the Nets had and they were going to go down that route, I was a big fan of it. Obviously, you hear James Harden wants to come to you, you move mountains to get that
Yeah.
type of guy, right? But that's what it feels like we're in the midst of seeing again. It's just there's a lot of players wanting to move this summer. Is that Rudy Gobert wind up being that thief in the night trade where he was moved? I don't think it's going to equate to a championship, but it ultimately made the T Wolves a lot better, right? Like T Wolves definitely could be a team, a top five team in the West, in my mind, with the upgrades that they have. They do have to solidify the roster, but it was a very thief in the night. No one expected it. No one expected him going to the T Wolves. Like, so there's that aspect of it, but also it's going to only drive the price of these bigger names higher. And that's where it's like the Knicks, in my mind, are weighing the options of saying, does it make sense to price yourself out or mortgage your
Mhm.
future for this guy who essentially will become that future? Also weighing out, and this ties back into the Nick Wright conversation, is that players don't have no affinity to teams. They don't have any affinity to your loyalty as a fan either. So you're mortgaging it with the chance or the thought that one day somebody could fart on on Donovan Mitchell a little too hard,
Yeah.
and he might decide I'm out of New York. you
Yeah.
know, so it's like stuff like that that makes you like. I think why we're at like a standstill with like pretty much any of these trades. You're looking at it. It's like all of these
Yeah.
star players are fickle with what they want to do.
I liked I don't know if you listened to Alex Caruso clip when he was on Old Man the Three, and he was essentially saying, yeah, of the players are treating the game like the owners are, and I do agree with that in the sense of, I mean, you look at it all the time. Think about, I mean, it's always funny. We talk about these guys are assets and all that, and if you really look at it from like, if you step back and you look at it, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, these are humans, these are people's lives here, and it's the same. Like we always say, it's a business. People get traded. People have to uproot their entire lives. Like, even hearing the story of Tyrese Halliburton when he was traded, of like all the stuff that he had to do. And I think it was yeah, like he had to, he was planning on going on like on a vacation or like a trip or something like that, I think he was saying, and during All-Star weekend, and he instead he had to literally be traveling and packing all his stuff the entire time. Like, it's funny to see that now it's kind of flipped, that the owners are throwing a little temper tantrum and all that other stuff. But I will agree, if I was on that side, I'd be probably pretty angry if this was happening to me.
I like the thought of that. Like, I remember hearing him say that, but I like to think of it in the sense like, okay, if that's what you want to, how you want to think of it, like, how about like let's take Kevin Durant and his multiple business ventures. You don't see Banksy, the guy that's on the boardroom with him, just decide, you know what? Yep, I ain't showing up anymore. I'm gonna expect that check. You know, I think you need to find another podcast to put me on so I can feel okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to, and it's no disrespect to Kevin Durant when I say it like that, but that's what I equate it to, like in mindset, right? Like, there's always, and it's gonna sound bad how I say it, but there there's a reason why it's like this. Is there's the stakeholders and there's the shareholders, and it's better you understand how you could maximize yourself as being a shareholder, in a sense like what LeBron James does,
Mhm.
over I mean, being a stakeholder, because I think he would be a stakeholder in this situation because he works in the NBA. But the owners would be the shareholders in that case, where they are invested to the future of these guys, which means that they're on a different stratosphere, essentially. Like, the way how they have to think about money is a lot different than how the players have to equate or think
Mhm.
about money. But you understand that they both play a part in the cog, right? And that's where I feel like I understand what Alex Caruso was saying.
Mhm.
But don't let it be, don't let, don't forget that what they are doing is can be viewed or can be seen as more detrimental in the long run to the interests or the future of the NBA than what the shareholders, which would be the
Yeah.
owners in the case, would be, because they're moving not for emotional, not for personal reasons. They're moving to better their brand, right? Granted, there probably is owners out here that
Yeah.
are take do take things personal and move players for X reasons, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're moving it to further their team, right? As in a player, like I said, man, you come up, you fart on Kyrie the wrong way, man. He might want to go to
Yeah.
Miami after that, So, like, you just can't.
I will.
It's hard to like think of it the
Yeah.
same way.
I will say, I mean, these players, they are essentially a brand now. And so, like, you're, in a sense, depending on where you trade them to, like, you kind of are messing with their brand, in a sense of like a big thing. There's always talks about like, why does Donovan Mitchell want to leave Utah? It's a big reason, or he hasn't officially requested a trade, but it's pretty widely known out there that like, if he gets traded, Donovan Mitchell's not going to be crying, because if he goes to a bigger market like Miami or New York or whatever, he has a chance to actually build his brand versus in Utah. And you're talking about like, oh, like Kevin Durant's podcast partner, like if he's like, oh, don't want to show up, I kind of think about it too, like, all right, let's do an inverse, and like imagine Jeff like at your company, you're in Miami, you're loving it right now, and they're like, we're training you, Jeff, for there's a really hot star coming up, and he's in Nebraska at this printing company. Hey, we're trading your rights still over there. You got to go to Nebraska, Jeff. appreciate doing business. It's just business. Like, you feel it'd be kind of messed up. Like, so that's where I guess I could see them, the reason why they fight back.
Oh, and I do not.
Yeah.
Do not miss out on that thought process. But I also understood going into what situation that I'm walking into.
Yeah.
And granted, that doesn't mean you have to stay with the status quo. Things have to change.
Yeah.
But ultimately, where we have moved to at this point with players, the players empowerment movement, they call it, is a point where it can become detrimental, if not coattailed a little bit, is where I see it as.
It definitely is. It's getting to the point where it's too much of a problem when players are like Kevin Durant or even Ben Simmons, where you have 4 years left in your contract and you're like, I want out, and so that's where it makes it really. It's kind of ruining stuff right now for teams, and it makes it very weird. And yeah, it's definitely going to get changed. I wonder how they're going to do it, how they're going to change it. But yeah, that has to be changed.
It does.
I was thinking too. So like, I just kind of want to bring it back. I kind of mentioned it last episode with like, I really don't think. I feel like it's a bluff when I hear Utah is wanting or is okay with running it back. And you even see stuff of like, so one, you talked about the Victor sweepstakes. Everyone wants to draft this new, apparently generational talent, 7'3", can do all this stuff. Guy looks amazing. And then you have the situation where you have a brand new head coach in Will Hardy, and he is coming here, taking over. You kind of don't want to hand them a kind of sticky, messy situation. You traded for, in the Rudy Gobert trade, players like Patrick Beverley and all this other stuff. And even you have guys like Jordan Clarkson tweeting out, hey, am I staying? Like there's a conversation chain between Eric Pascal and Donovan Mitchell going back and forth. And then Jordan Clarkson jumps in midway and he's just like, hey, so does that mean we're all staying in Utah, guys? You have Patrick Beverley talking about, I just want to know, am I staying here? Are we trying to win, or do I have to go somewhere else? Like, I don't think they want that uncertainty coming into training camp. I think that would be pretty terrible. And like you're saying, if they keep it all, sure, then you just take yourself out of the Victor sweepstakes. And then now things get a little bit messy. Yeah, I think, and they also just with trade value stuff. Like, I think both sides want to get it done immediately. I actually want to get your thoughts on the Knicks side. Personally, I'd be actually okay walking into the season without Donovan Mitchell. Do I want Donovan Mitchell? 100% for the right price. I don't want to give up all this other stuff. Like, sure. Like, I don't want to get completely fleeced by day and age. I don't think anyone wants to get fleeced by day and age. And this is why it's kind of funny of like, now everyone knows like, oh, are they going to get fleeced and all that stuff? And I wonder if this is kind of, I wonder how Danny Ainge would do on the era with like without technology and social media, where people will be blowing up these front offices for making these terrible trades. But yeah, I personally would be okay. I don't know if every Knicks fan will also feel the same way. But do you think it would be a disaster if the Knicks didn't trade for Donovan Mitchell? And let's say the Washington Wizards came out of nowhere and traded for Donovan Mitchell.
And to be honest with you, probably the most sensible Knicks fan ever, right?
Yeah.
You would be okay. I know you would be okay. You would believe that, well, we still have our future. We'll make this right. But all of New York, I would hear New York all the way from Miami complaining about Donovan Mitchell went to the Wizards. Like that, it would almost be the end of the earth, like of the world type of situation, near apocalyptic Earth situation. But I think that there's a way where it doesn't have to be that bad for the Knicks, or perceived as that bad for the Knicks, which is not a problem in my mind. If they decide to step back, not do it, but it's just not gonna look right. It's not gonna be good for. I think Stephen A. Smith has like a shoulder injury right now.
Yeah, he does.
So he's not around right now to say anything, but I swear, if he got traded to the Wizards, he would pull out that sling and he would go off first take and he would rip the Knicks for a whole episode, and saying they never get anything right. They never do anything right. Like, we're almost at the whim of doing it now because we've heard about it for so long. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like, transitioning to potentially what our next conversation will be about Westbrook is this is happening for too long. Like, that's how everybody is going to start thinking. Like, they've been talking about this for X amount of months. Like, you can only talk about this so much before people start saying, like, you're either going to do it or you're not.
Yeah.
And I'd rather they either ripped off the Band-Aid now or they just say, you know what? I'm not here to play a game of cat and mouse with you so you could try to fleece me, Yeah.
Last comment on this. I would prefer that. I'm kind of at the point where, like, the last 2 weeks I just been, refreshing my Twitter feed, going crazy. Any little rumor drops, any little cryptic tweet that Donovan Mitchell tweets out, I'm like, oh my God, what does this mean? I think the other day he tweeted out, like, God is good. I was like, did the trade happen? At this point, I'm just done.
Just put it into the NBA cryptic tweets machine, and then just have it spin up something and then post it on Twitter. That's what they're doing now.
Bro, he has to know what he's doing because he does it so much. Of like, he tweets out the song lyric, he tweets it like, it's crazy.
All of these guys are doing it, and it's honestly annoying. Like, I would just rather you just be straight up about how you feel. Like man, there ain't nobody as cold as that man. What's his name again? He was on the Suns. Not Beasley. I don't know why Beasley is the name that's. He was a point guard when they had the 3-point guards: Isaiah Thomas, Goran Dragic, and him. He was on the Bucks.
I don't know.
Across the name, but he was a pretty good player. I forgot his name though, but he was like, I don't want to be here. That was
we need that.
You gotta just be straight up, man. I respect the man that could do that.
We need that. But definitely the last thing of it's interesting of, like you're talking about, I definitely agree. If this trade didn't go down, Knicks fans would go crazy. The media would go crazy. But it's a lose-lose situation in my opinion. Because like you're saying, in that situation, everyone goes crazy. In the situation that the Knicks get Donovan Mitchell, I'm going to hear the media 100%. They're already saying it now of you have 2 6-1 point guards. What were you thinking? You just traded everything for these guys. What are you guys doing? Are you guys winning a championship? Everyone knows they're not winning a championship. This was the biggest blunder ever. They got fleeced. Everyone's going to go crazy as to say this was like the worst move that they could have made. And that's where it's always just interesting of like, I'm gonna lose no matter what. I'm gonna hear it no matter what if they win or not, or if they get these guys. I'm on the boat of either situation happens. I feel like I'd be happy, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's still plenty more Donovan Mitchell talk to happen in the future.
I got the name. It was Eric Bledsoe.
Oh yes. It was Bledsoe. So, do you want to move on to the Lakers and Russ or Westbrook?
Oh man, I just tired of this.
Yeah.
It's almost as tiring as the KD Kyrie drama now. At least there's new wrinkles
Yes.
when it comes to the KD and Kyrie trade, right? But how many times do you have to go and knock on someone's door and go like, "You want him?
Yeah.
You want him now?"
It's a Taylor Horn Tucker 2.0.
It's ridiculous because like based off of what I saw, it looks like the trade proposal didn't change at all.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a report that's coming from that came today from Sports Illustrated saying that there's 3 teams that are interested in Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
And how is one of the teams the Pacers when you ask, like they've been asking you to take him for over 6 months now. Like it's ridiculous to keep on hearing this. I don't know where this is coming from. Obviously, actually it came through Shams. It was just Sports Illustrated reported about what Shams said. But like it's I can't deal with hearing this one anymore. I see that the Knicks are interested. I don't think that that's a real trade option. And the Jazz, I already said what they on. They're on that trade exception time. Like, well, actually, they're not moving a piece, but so they wouldn't get the exception, or would they? No, no.
I don't know. I see.
They'd be taking on. They would be taking on salary.
Yes.
So if they were giving out salary, they would get exception if they didn't take any players on. So I think maybe that trade exception for Donovan Mitchell plays in part of getting Westbrook and then buying out and allowing him to go wherever he wants. But the Lakers aren't even willing to give 2 picks.
Yeah.
So like that's where the conversation starts and ends with most of these teams, you know?
Yeah, it's so weird, this whole Westbrook stuff. Like you're saying, no one wants him. He has this giant contract that you have to pay him for another year. And the Lakers are like, we don't want to trade, we don't want to attach anything to trade him. So it's like, so you don't want to get rid of him. I saw like some people were talking about of, I wonder if there's some 4-team trade here with like the Knicks, Jazz, and this is the whole Donovan Mitchell stuff. I wonder if there's anything there because we also heard the smoke of Mark Stein the other day was talking about how the Knicks want to trade Julius Randle for Westbrook so that they can eventually buy out Westbrook so that they're able to open up cap space. The way that they would only be able to actually open up cap space if the Knicks would ever do that, though, is to also trade Cam Reddish because you would need to get rid of Cam Reddish's cap hold in order to actually create any space. So that's where it kind of makes it a little bit interesting. I don't really understand.
Is that cap space for this season or for next season? They're thinking about
it would have to be for next season because Yeah, if you're buying out Westbrook, then you're just eating that money for the season, which is just I see a lot of Knicks fans talking about it, like taking this pretty seriously. I guess I don't really understand it. Of like, I thought we're trying to win right now. If we trade for Donovan Mitchell, we're trying to win, but yet we just kind of want to get rid of Julius Randle when he has no trade value, and this is just very strange. I don't like it. Yeah, it's a weird situation. Like, I guess you're just trying to open up space for like Obi Toppin, but I don't know. I don't know. It's the Westbrook thing. What I did actually want to talk to you about this was if the Lakers end up not trading Westbrook, what do you think their ceiling is? Like, do you think last year was a fluke? Do you think they're any better than last year?
I think talent-wise, LeBron always puts you in the conversation. Granted, I said that last year, but but I think that there has been irreversible damage or irreprehensible damage. You know, like what they say when someone's about to get divorced. You know,
Yeah,
like that's where it's at right now. Is they've done too much. They've done too much for you to go back and say, like, all right, Westbrook, let's get together, let's get this done. You know,
yeah.
like the chemistry on the floor is gonna be so bad. And then the
Mhm.
reports are already showing he's not willing to change. Like there's been a lot of reporting now of all of these reporters like Zach Lowe, I think spoke about it recently about like his career arc starting to look a lot like Allen Iverson's. Like the guy was not willing to change his game as he advances in age, and it's showing. And like it's hard because like ultimately he is one of the greatest players to play in the league, but like he the unwillingness to change is not even just in basketball, in any facet of life. If you're
Mhm.
not willing to change with the times, you're going to be left behind. And clearly he's getting left behind. And you know what makes it so sad too is that he has a cautionary tale of how that can happen on the Lakers with Dwight
Yeah,
Howard. Like he could
it's true.
literally tell you about what that feels like.
Yeah.
And he chooses, nope, like I only know one way. I only know one way, and I'm not going to do anything else. But I also think about it on the side of like this is football, but like I remember when Chad Ochocinco Johnson decided to change his temperament and how he played. Um, uh, on his temperament of how he is on the field for adjusting to a new team, which was the New England Patriots. But when he got there, you realize it's a part of his game. Like he needs that. Like
Mhm.
that type of player needs that. That's the same thing I kind of feel with Westbrook is he needs to be that same type of player to be successful. And sadly, that's not going to win you any championships. And we're in a place where there's a lot of teams. And honestly, I don't know why this team hasn't said anything. They're already basketball hell, anyways. Why isn't the Kings in these trade offers? Like get Westbrook to the Kings. I swear he'll put them in a playing game.
Mhm.
He will definitely make the Kings. That might be the fan base that would actually love him.
Yeah.
Like thinking about it now is I don't know what the package would look like. I think it's almost time where you start to consider thinking about moving on from De'Aaron Fox. I don't think he's a bad player. I just think that he's in a
Mhm.
situation that's not good for him. You know,
I'm
for
I'm
him to get
higher
a
on
better.
Fox. I think I'm higher than on Fox than you right now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's bad. I just think that in a better scenario, he would be a lot better. You know, I
Yeah, I
equate
agree.
it to like a guy like Zach Randolph when he started his career on the Knicks. He was not the
Mhm.
player he was when he got to the Grizzlies, right? So
Mhm.
like similar in my mindset is what that would be for De'Aaron Fox. So trade De'Aaron Fox, pick up Russell Westbrook, get in the play-in. What Westbrook gets a statue outside of Sacramento, and there we go. His career is revitalized.
It's kind of funny of you're talking about like Westbrook goes to LA. So Westbrook, even the season before he went to LA in Washington, he wasn't really like bad. He won like Player of the Month, I believe, and he was doing all this stuff, and like he was carrying the Wizards to. Did they make the play-in playoffs? Whatever, he was carrying them to something. He was making them play really well, and he was actually putting up a lot of stats. But for some reason, when he went to the Lakers, he just kind of it reminds me of when you watch Space Jam, the first Space Jam, which is weird to even say the first Space Jam. We watch Space Jam and the little aliens like take their power away, their basketball juju. Like the bricks that he was doing, that's it. It's what it feels like, just like the movie. It's crazy to see how much of a drop off there is. The Dwight Howard thing is probably the weirdest thing ever. What happened to him? Dwight Howard was one of the most dominant players in the entire NBA. He went to the Lakers and he just was never the same. What happened?
It's essentially what's happening in Westbrook. The game changed in front of him. The game became, and it's funny is he kind of ushered change in how centers were playing because of the athleticism he had. Long were the days of big and boxy centers anymore. Like that wasn't a thing anymore once Dwight Howard came. The teams were looking at slender guys that could finesse, guys that could now at that point expand their range. And Dwight Howard never changed or understood he needed to change during that time. And you look, I think his last effective year of him being essentially a star was 2015 when he was on the Houston. And then from there on, everybody in the league asked him on centers, like, these guys could shoot, these guys could get in the paint, these guys could move their feet, these guys could shoot off some ridiculous Dirk Nowitzki shots. Like, it was all the stuff Dwight Howard could not do on offense, and it's sad because you cannot game plan for how he plays anymore. You're not going to trade a two. You're not going to be trading twos for threes in a league where now Steph Curry is lighting up everybody shooting threes. And it's the same way. When the turn of the guard became of Steph Curry's going to shoot these threes, and he's going to shoot them often, and he's going to make it look like it's so easy. And you got a guy that can't even, at times, even touch the rim. Like it's hard to like watch your game become obsolete. But that's what happens to both of those guys.
So you don't think of like, 2000s, late 2000s Dwight Howard. If he was that same player, you don't think he's doing well? You don't think he's that? I feel like he was just so dominant. I feel like something changed, and injuries and all that, I'm sure, played a huge part, but like he was not that same guy.
I think there's a turn of the guard nowadays where it's going back to it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You look at guys like Jared Allen that became an all-star, but God, look at the gap. Look at the gap of the top centers in the league. They do everything that Dwight Howard does not do. Like that's where I'm saying, like, yes, he would be Dwight Howard would be a good center. He would be right up with Jared Allen. But then there would be the gap, the eons of the gap that is between him and the likes of Joel Embiid and two-time MVP Jokic. Like it would just be so glaringly like big.
I feel like the centers things, like centers disappear way more often. Of like, I feel like I had like 4 names on top of my head, but the only one that's coming to me right now is like Hassan Whiteside. of like he was so dominant that 1 year in Miami. He was insanely good. And like, where's Hassan Whiteside now? Like, does he even have a contract at the moment? Because I believe he was on Utah last season. I don't know, but like,
Yeah, he was on Utah last year.
I don't know if he has a contract right now. And it's just like, what happened? It's like a switch with a lot of these centers where they're so good and then they just disappear.
And you know, that's why even like going back to like trade proposals, sometimes people will tell me that I want to get someone like a Bam in a trade. And it's no disrespect to Bam, but there's just something that is so different about predicting the longevity of centers in the league over
Yeah.
picking guards or wings. And I think fundamentally, and this is why I have a different stance on Steph Curry than a lot of other people. I do not hate Steph Curry. I do not think less of Steph Curry, but it always has and it always will be a wings league. That's the difference when Steph Curry won a championship and the difference of when he did not win a championship. Is if he does not have an effective wing, he won't win that championship. Think about how many point guards that rivaled the same type of talent as him that did not have a wing to play with them. They don't win championships. That's what it would be, you know. So I guess it's the same way, and I really went out of the deep ends going with that one. But I feel the same way about how I feel about the centers in the league. Is that they can affect winning, but they are not the determinant of what's winning. And like I said, it's always going to be a wing. That's why you don't hear guys giving up on guys like Jason Tatum. You don't
Yeah.
hear guys, even though he's in the trade mill, but that's of his own doing. You don't hear guys like Kevin Durant being thought of to be traded. You don't hear about guys like LeBron James thought to be traded. You know, you definitely didn't hear about Michael Jordan being thought to be traded. So like those guys are still the locomotive in my mind that moves the league along. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, the whole I mean, you even saw now with like the center thing with the Suns of they're literally saying with DeAndre Ayton, we feel like we can get similar production for a fraction of the price, which the way they played him in the playoffs and everything, I mean, they're not wrong in that sense. And it's so crazy of like that's where you see all these centers like they get paid 8, 9, $10 million, and they all generally do the same thing. And then you pick up a veteran center for the minimum, and he could do the same thing. Like it's really crazy. The centers just kind of disappear for now. Unless like and then like you say, you have Jokic and Embiid that are just on a different level.
Exactly.
And
Because they play like guards. And
yeah,
that's why.
exactly. They play like guards, and then they also the skill gap between the centers. I'm like, think about it. Now those guys are so good, and we understand there's a gap, but then they have all these lesser guys actually guarding them, and then the non-mobile guys that can't guard them. So right now, if I was to say the Lakers, they don't do any more moves. They keep Westbrook. They have all these signings. Where do they land?
Right? Their ceiling is the play-in.
I think I'm in the same boat as you. I'm like 8th seed.
What? Why? Why should they be given the benefit of the doubt? Is
Yeah.
what I'm thinking about at this point now. Is that they've proven, and it sucks because you have one of the best players that ever played the game on your team, but he's getting older, and it's the same proponent of what is going to happen in my mind for Kevin Durant is that both of their games will never be bad.
Yeah,
but the injuries will be the reason why you don't have them as long,
for sure.
right? So you gotta start weighing that out. When your second best player is the same has the same issue and he's younger, like why am I supposed to believe that it's going to pan out in the most successful best case scenario? Best case scenario is in my mind they get to like the third seed. That means every single thing went right. Every single thing. Westbrook changed his mind.
Yeah.
He decided to play off the bench. They pick up guys I know Dennis Schroeder talked about potential reunite. A guy like Dennis Schroeder, LeBron's near God like on the court, and 80 is his knees have been surgically repaired and he can play 70 games in the season. That's when I would say they would make it to the third seed.
Ah, I don't know. I feel like I'm even struggling to like third, maybe fourth. Like I think fourth is the highest I'm willing to go. Man, there's some good teams on the West. Like that's the thing. The West is like very, in my opinion, like top heavy. The bottom half is definitely a lot more open. But when you still got like the Warriors in there, you got the Grizzlies, you got even Phoenix. I mean, they won 60 games last year. Like they were really good, even though they crumbled and everything. And who knows what's happening this year? But I don't. They have the same team, so there really shouldn't be as big of a drop off as I feel like people are kind of expecting right now. And then you just have the Timberwolves who feel like they're built for the regular season. Like I don't, it's interesting.
We just talked about the Timberwolves. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of pretty decent teams, and I feel like I'm decently higher on the Kings, but I feel like they're like 7 seed potentially. I don't think the Blazers are really doing anything. You lose the Jazz, so like the Mavericks, they just you lose Brunson, but you pick up Christian Wood. You have Tim Hardaway Jr. back. Like they're still going to be a good team. It's tough.
Kevin Hardy.
He actually did it. He started to play pretty bad at the end of summer, or like after that. I remember we hyped him up. Like, man, he looked so good that first game, and then he just did not look great afterwards. But there's still potential.
Exactly.
All right, weekly tidbit. It's not. It's barely. I don't even know if you can consider a tidbit. It's really not much, and I was kind of expected. But the Hornets, after all their stuff, they hire the old coach back and everything. Miles Bridges, all this stuff. They're considering signing Kemba Walker and Isaiah Thomas to the team. Quick thoughts.
Oh my God, what does it do? Like, I guess it's nice seeing Kemba back just where he started. Definitely had a following there. People loved him, but does this help the team? The team was in their perfect situation to get better or progress, keep on progressing, and then besides me not liking their draft picks, I'm losing a key player on their team, and then lackluster free agent pickups. And I just don't understand how you go back to a coach that didn't work. Like that never makes sense to me.
It's a weird move, man. It is a weird move. It definitely was a panic situation. Kenny Atkinson did do them dirty. It definitely was something there. They probably didn't want to pay D'Antoni, and it just kind of who else? Old faithful. Oh, faithful. Go back to him. It's pretty bad. The Kemba Walker thing, I think that was kind of expected. Isaiah Thomas bringing him back is kind of weird, and like the whole situation of you have LaMelo Ball, you want him to be your point guard. It's very weird to me that you're even considering bringing back other point guards. The other one, I actually forgot to write it down right away, but I want to get your thoughts of the Colin Sexton offer that he's getting from the Cavs. Now, I've been trying to find this, trying to pick it up. I can't remember off the top of my head. I feel like it was like 3 years, 40 million that they're offering. It's something like that. But he's Colin Sexton at the end of the day though is getting a low ball offer. What do you think about that? And for the Cavs, and does he even accept it? Does he look somewhere else? Bigger role?
Apparently, I'm seeing, like you said, 3 years. He's unlikely to take it. So there's that.
Yeah.
I guess question has to be asked: why is a team that looks like it has a good culture, is building the right way, not so high on this guy? That's the question you start to ask. And almost you brought it up when we discussed DeAndre Ayton, and his coach didn't have those savory things to say about him. And it kind of makes you think, like, why are they so down on him? And you just want to figure what that is first. I realistically think lose Jalen Brunson. I don't know how high they are under their cap they are. They should make a play on Colin Sexton. Even if it's a sign and trade, move whatever you can. I think he makes the life a lot easier for Luka as well. But you've seen, because I think he does have an aspect to his game where he could play off the ball. We saw that with him and Garland. But I did love what I saw initially in his career with Garland that made me think, like, man, like these guys are going to look good together. And then they just don't care. Like, they really just don't care to have them. And
yeah. I wonder if there's something of like they just did so well without him because he went down so early last season. You don't need him. Maybe they're like, we have Karis LeVert and all this other stuff. Like, we kind of rather go bigger than smaller with, like, Darius Garland's already a small guard. Colin Sexton's 6'1". You don't really. So that's where I'm kind of thinking. It is a little bit unfortunate for Colin Sexton too, because he's just been getting injured this entire time. He's always been getting injured. I wonder if he can get money somewhere else. Like you're saying, he's gonna deny it and all that. But it is also just curious as to the Cavs don't have to, I mean, they don't have to like trade assets to try to keep him or anything like that, or trade it. Like, this is their guy that they drafted. They can keep him if they want to, but it really seems like they're just not serious about it. So I'm very interested to see how this Colin Sexton saga continues. Like you're saying, I see a lot of Mavs fans going kind of crazy of like, let's get him. They need him. He's the perfect fit. He replaces Brunson. But see if that actually happens. That's all I got for the weekly tidbit. And man, this is always fun. I'm always happy. I'm happy, like I said, that we waited for Monday to do this because there was some more news. But do you have anything you want to say before we call it an episode?
That is it for me today.
Nice. Actually, I'll throw a Jeff was recommending me Westworld season 4. I'm not caught up at all, but he sold it pretty well to me. So, listeners, you got that.
If you haven't seen Westworld, oh man, you're in for a treat.
But yeah, for all the listeners, really appreciate it. Like we said at the beginning of the episode, please, we will love your feedback. Give us a rating. Just let us know what you guys think. We want to make this the best for you. We want to improve. We really enjoy doing this. Please let us know. And, give us a like while you're there. Give us a subscribe. I think we've been doing some really cool stuff, and then Jeff always on the Twitter killing it. It's too good. It's too good. Follow it on the screen, on the links below. But yeah, it's been a great one. This has been episode 38.